Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Carrot Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 1997 Southern Gothic drama titled Eve's Bayou. Now, Eve's Bayou runs for 1 hour and 49 minutes long. It is directed and written by Cassie Lemmons. And, for all those who don't know, and for all those African-American feminists out there, I would say you guys have got yourselves a gold star in this. Because guess what? This movie was directed by a black woman. And it was written by a black woman. Cassie Lemmons. When I first knew Cassie Lemmons, I knew her from the 1992 slasher movie Candyman. Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that she was one of Candyman's victims. But she still turned in a great performance. So she's quite versatile. She could be working behind the scenes, and she could be working in front of the camera. So hats off to her. All right, the production team consists of Caldecott Chubb, Samuel L. Jackson, Mark Amin, and Nick Weschler. It is composed by Terrence Blanchard. The cinematography by Amy Vincent, and it was edited by Terralyn A. Shropshire. And the stars of the movie are Jurnee Smollett, Samuel L. Jackson, Debbi Morgan, Lynn Whitfield, Diahnn Carroll, Lisa Nicole Carson, Meagan Good, Roger Guenveur Smith, Vondie Curtis Hall, Branford Marsalis, Carroll Sutton, Ethel Ayler, Jake Smollett, Victoria Rowell, who I remember from the TV series Diagnosis Murder with Dick Van Dyke. She played Dr. Amanda Bentley, and Tamara Tunie as the voice of the adult Eve Batiste. I knew her from Law & Order Special Victims Unit, as she played the medical examiner by the name of Melinda Warner, I believe her name is. Yeah, that's her name. She was a recurring character, but she has been on that show for a long, long time. Right from the opening intro, narrated by Eve Batiste, because this movie is seen from the perspective of Eve Batiste, as she's kind of, narrating an event that changed her life. And the opening sentence, the first sentence that was spoken in this movie really shows just how dark and gothic this movie really is. So the opening sentence is, memory is a selection of images, some elusive, others printed indelibly on the brain. The summer I killed my father, I was 10 years old. And then we go into the events that led to Eve Batiste's father's death. The question is, did he deserve it? Or was he just a misfortunate victim of his own damnation and may have not deserved to go the way he did? Now, of course, people will complain that, well, jeez, there's no mystery. So what's the point of me continuing to watch? Well, there's the old saying that goes, you don't judge a book by its cover. You're probably only just looking at the back sleeve of the book. Why don't you just sit down and watch the damn thing and shut the hell up? So that's what I probably would suggest for you all to do. Because it's not about his death, it's about the events that led to his uneventful demise. Or eventful demise, depending on your point of view or perspective about this specific character. So to say Eve's Bayou is a coming-of-age story concentrating on the life of a young African-American girl growing up in the swampy lands of 1960s Louisiana, 1962 to be specific, well, you're not wrong. But there's a lot more that's going on here. Debuting as writer and director, Cassie Lemmons tells a provocative story with deeply rooted characters, a rich cultural backdrop of the Deep South, and an emotional roller coaster ride of a prominent family falling apart. And as time and time goes on, the more you see this family fall apart, it is, make no mistake about it, this movie is a tragedy. I mean, I'm gonna say this right off the bat, the cinematography in this movie is really, really good. I mean, it really does feel like you're living in the bayou areas of Louisiana. Very rich in Creole culture. And even sometimes the characters themselves eventually pop in a few parlez-vous français as they speak along. I mean, let's face it, the Baptiste family are Haitian Creoles. What's actually kind of an interesting thing to note is that the cast, none of them are actually from Louisiana except for Lynn Whitfield as Rose Baptiste. She's the only one, and she's actually not from the Bayous, but from the big city of Baton Rouge. And even she doesn't seem to epitomize that I do declare accent. Okay, I'm not gonna do that anymore. I'm trying to be light on this subject because this movie is quite heavy-handed. So this movie shows that we can balance style and substance to the point where one doesn't upstage the other. And that's good, and that's a good thing. Because, even the costumes, the props, and the settings, and a lot of these features are great. Hey, guess what? This movie does not have any CGI, does not have any loud explosives. No. And as for visual effects, well, you could throw that out the window too, because you won't find that here. You want a loud, boisterous movie? Then go watch some lame brain action movies and get the hell out of here. The only thing that really, really, really makes my blood boil is that it was sadly ignored by the Academy Awards. But however, though, the other awards, the less prominent ones, did give it its well-deserved accolades, and was heavily praised by the critics, especially from one Roger Ebert, who said that this was the best film that came out in 1997. And just like the 1962 adaptation of Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird, the story is told from the perspective of the adult version of the younger lead in this tale, narrated by Tamara Tunie. The story is all seen through the eyes of Eve. One night, Eve's parents. Eve was played by Jurnee Smollett. Her parents includes Dr. Louis Baptiste, played by Samuel L. Jackson, and his lovely wife, Rose, played by Lynn Whitfield, threw a big party. And everybody looked like they were having a good time. Everybody was all dressed immaculate. They were all wearing their fancy suits and their almost like their Sunday best. I don't remember what the big special occasion was. But everything looked all fine. Everything looked Jim dandy. Then one day at the dance, Louis starts dancing with his daughter, Cicely, played by Meagan Good. And it looks like they were having a good time. Nothing wrong with that, right? Sometimes children would like to also sometimes dance with their family members or extended family members. So what? However, though, Eve, who is the middle child, yes, I know it's kind of a bit cliche. Eve is, of course, the middle child, and you know about middle child syndrome, how one parent likes one offspring and the other one likes the other offspring, and the one in the middle seems to be the black sheep. Well, she eventually got a bit jealous because her father was dancing with Cicely, and she thought she was like expecting Daddy to give her the same equal attention. But he just like flat out ignored her. This really upset Eve so much that she went to go hide in the carriage house. All of a sudden, Lois goes into the carriage house, but is he actually looking for Eve? No. He is accompanied by another woman. Her name was Mrs. Morneau, played by Lisa Nicole Carson. Is he? And it appears as though as if he's just about ready to commit an act of infidelity, unbeknownst to him that Eve happens to be hiding in the carriage house too. So just as he was ready to make love to this woman, she accidentally sneezed and she actually caught him red-handed. Now, apparently, although Dr. Baptiste seems to be one of the more outstanding citizens in this small Creole Bayou community, you know, well respected, dedicated, hell, goes out for days making alleged house calls. Hard to tell which ones are legit and which ones aren't. Well, apparently he was caught red-handed. And he tries to sort of manipulate Eve into trying to go hush hush on him, not to. I mean, he tries to comfort her by explaining that Mrs. Morneau has some kind of an element that requires some moments of privacy. But of course, we realize that Eve is not really particularly falling for his bullshit lies. Now, as you all know, Eve tries to convince her older sister Cicely, played by Meagan Good, to believe that her father is cheating on their mother. But Cicely doesn't bite into it and seems to passively aggressively say that it's all just interaction with adults and nothing more. Whatever happened to faithfulness? Doesn't that mean anything? But but as time goes on, more and more revelations come out within the family dynamics. And it appears that Louis Baptiste has a certain weakness for younger female patients. If you know what I mean. I'm trying to be subtle here. But it's not really working that well.
It's not very subtle.
But then again, this movie is not a subtle movie.
No. Oh, it should be.
As the story continues, more dark, startling revelations begin to materialize, which may shock, surprise, and devastate you in the end. Now, in spite of all this, I actually give a lot of praise to the performances. I mean, the performances were all really well executed. I got it, depends on, who's the good guys or the bad guys in the movie. They all turn in really good performances. No one tries to upstage, usurp, or try to do any kind of over-the-topness. Samuel L. Jackson, he's a legend in this film business. And he just seems to just be so quite natural as the smooth-talking, laid-back individual. He knows that he's been caught red-handed, but he still tries to remain a calm face. I mean, Lynn Whitfield, she doesn't always get the credit that she deserves. She also tries to, be like the person to hold the family together. And, I also give a lot of praise to the supporting cast, but it's really actually the movie, the real scene stealers in this movie is the aforementioned Eve, played by Jurnee Smollett. She is just so natural there. I want to give more praise to them in a bit, but Meagan, good, really excellent in this movie. But I'm going to go into more praise later on in the narrative. Like I said before, this is well acted. I mean, Samuel L. Jackson has this kind of... it's clear that Samuel L. Jackson is the villain in this story. But he's not what you would call an anti-villain. He's what you would call an anti-villain. There's the anti-hero, where an anti-hero is a vigilante who does the world of good, even though he or she does not want your adulation, does not want your autograph, does not want you're my... Somebody might say something to them like, you're my hero, and they would flip you the middle finger. That's what an anti-hero is. A person who doesn't want any adulation. But to counteract that, Samuel L. Jackson's character would be an anti-villain. He knows that he is in the wrong. But he just has this flow about him that you want to hate this guy. But he's just such a smooth talker. It's like, I can't just hate the guy. And maybe he isn't really what you would conventionally call evil. Maybe he just doesn't have this willpower to hold himself back from committing infidelity with his patients, particularly the younger female types. And I gotta say, to Lynn Whitfield's character, Roz, she definitely resembles like the typical late 50s, early 60s housewife. But you really take a lot of sympathy for the most prominent extended family member, Debbi Morgan. My goodness, she gives a stunning performance as Louis's sister and clairvoyant, Moselle Baptiste Delacroix. I mean, is this person cursed or what? I mean, it's unfortunate that she has been married 3 times, and it seems that she's like the unintentional black widow of some sort. Because every time she gets married, the husbands that she gets married to, they all seem to succumb to tragic deaths. You really feel bad for her. But there's also a lot of stuff that you would like about her, because whereas Roz seems to somewhat favor the youngest child and only son, Poe, played by Jake Smollett, who is in real life the younger brother of Jurnee Smollett. And Cicely seems to be somewhat a favorite towards her father, which might seem innocent, but it's actually anything but. But you truly, and also you got to give hats off to Diahnn Carroll, who delves into a character actor performance as the mysterious voodoo witch doctor Elzora. Yeah, I guess you kind of knew this was going to be supplanted into the narrative, being it's in Louisiana, it's in the Bayou, so you probably will expect to see a lot of voodoo stuff. Oh no, oh yeah, like all Haitians are into that stuff, which is so freaking cliche.
Yeah, cliche.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alright. You're too emotional. Goodbye.
Not every Haitian is into that stuff, but
No?
oh well.
I think so.
I guess it just comes synonymous with the settings and the culture.
Oh, yeah, they do tend to be like that, though.
But like I said,
Very superstitious people.
Jurnee Smollett just definitely embodies just how versatile she is as a performance in one of her earlier roles as the younger sister Eve. And she actually can counterbalance a bit of her character dynamics. I mean, there are times when she could be annoyingly too smart for her age, but still she can embrace that childlike image she portrays. The dramatic scenes she plays are handled very well, and we truly tug at the heartstrings from her audience. And Meagan Good is equally impressive as the older sister and adolescent Cicely. And like all teenagers within her age bracket, she's entering the phase of womanhood and feels lost in the emotions of trying to escape her inner child, but not ready to evolve into an adult like most teenagers often experience. Now, you may think that the father-daughter relationship between Cicely and Louis is strong, but to be honest with you, it is not actually that comforting or reassuring, I tell you. I mean, and it also stems from her rather strained and somewhat neglectful relationship between her mother Roz. I mean, if you really, really go deep into the movie, we could clearly see that there is a lot of resentment, hostility, and somewhat competitiveness between the mother-daughter relationship between Roz and Cicely. And it's not just because Cicely is overbearing and rebellious. Yes, there is some of that. But it seems like they're kind of competitive over Louis, which is strange and weird. I mean, why does Roz seem to have this competitive, cold shoulder persona over Cicely? Why? There's something out there that meets, there's more out there that meets the eye. What it is, only her and Louis know. And they're not fully telling us. And that's actually a good thing what Cassidy Lemmons is doing. She is esoterically keeping this in the balance, making us decide for ourselves what the fuck is going on. I mean, they are trying to tell us, they're not trying to tell us the full picture. Even though we pretty much clearly show that the family dynamics in this movie is very, very fractured and very, very screwed up. And yet, just from the opening scenes, they look like the typical nuclear family, traditional two-parent household with a bunch of kids and extended families coming over to visit because they're a solid, cohesive family unit. But we realize it's anything but. Now, this is a very, very uncomfortable situation. Could it be that Louis's weakness has actually took an effect on his direct family members too? I mean, think about it. Why does Cicely kind of talk to her father almost like a husband and not a daughter? And why does she always wait for him to come home when it should be Roz that should be the one coming home? What's going on here? Eva's trying to sort of piece together this bizarre, macabre puzzle. But nobody's really actually fully telling us the whole story. And you know what? Fine. I love a good mystery. Keep us all in suspense. I mean, the movie genre could also have some level of suspenseful drama behind this. And then and then there's also and then there was also the strange scene where Mademoiselle was predicting that somebody in her life is going to get hit by a bus or something like that. And Roz declared that none of the kids were allowed to go out, fearing that what if her premonition is true, or whether it's all just a hoax. Well, Cicely sneaks out the door, goes out of her way to go visit Daddy, and gets a haircut, much to the chagrin of Roz, which also triggers a very, very hostile conflict that transpired. It's just so uncomfortable and unsettling to watch. Other pieces to the puzzle is when when Cicely was in her room, we noticed blood stains on her underwear. Could it be that she was having her period? I don't know. Maybe something even more unnerving. What it is, maybe I don't want to know either. And then finally, when Cicely does spill the beans, that her father was making passes to her, this, of course, triggered Eve, stating that this bastard probably would be better off dead. And, as time goes on, she actually wants to go out of her ways to kill him. This movie's not for the faint of heart, I can tell you. Don't worry, next week it's going to be it's going to be a kiddie stuff. But now, we have to go through this movie. I promise you. I don't know what else to say. So then, she goes out of her way to this witch doctor. Elzora purchases a voodoo doll, and she starts sticking pins in it. But obviously that just didn't do any good. And then we see Elzora without her witch doctor face paint, acting normal at first. But then she said, "You know what, child? You wished your father dead? Well, guess what? You got it." And she says some kind of subliminal message that about some kind of spell or some kind of hex that symbolizes that Lewis's life is not going to be any much longer. And then all of a sudden, she goes from wishing her father dead to regretting it. But you know what, child? Too late. So this is how the climax of this movie ended. Lewis is seen in a bar with Mrs. Moreau and her husband, who's a teacher named Lenny, or Lanny, I don't remember, played by Roger Guenveur Smith, who we may have remembered him from the movie Do the Right Thing as the as the special needs guy Smiley. They're talking, they're chatting. Everything seems fine. They join each other for a drink. Lanny is drunk. And then he tells them off that if you ever say anything or even go near my wife again, I will kill you. Lois dismisses his threat, and he says goodbye to Maddie. They walk outside the bar, and Lenny shoots Lewis, and he's dead. Which actually goes by the whole phrase, be careful what you wish for, because it might come true. So then, at the end of the movie, after his funeral and his burial, he opens up a letter, and he's saying that everything that Cicely said was the other way around. So now we're going to wonder who's telling the truth. And then we go to end credits. Very unnerving stuff here. But what makes this movie so great is that the characters are just so relatable. You eventually become attached to them right from the beginning. Once we're introduced to the Batiste family, the dynamics of this family starts to shift quite drastically, and not for the better. But however, there's not one awful performance, and everyone has a high level of significance that's essential to great storytelling. We have well-developed characters, and the dialogue is overly memorable and can linger in your mind for a very, very long time. The one standout was when Aunt Moselle gives some sage advice to Eve about the ups and downs of life and the pain and suffering which might have meaning behind it or no meaning at all. Coming from her and her sad misfortunes may seem cynical when reading, but underneath this whole movie with the message of that seems to come across as cynical and dark, there is still that shining message of hope. In 2018, Eve's Bayou was also selected by the Library of Congress for being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant by the National Film Registry. It is an accolade that truly deserved and a film one should not ignore. So if I was to give this movie a scale out of 10, I would give Eve's Bayou a 9 out of 10. So I guess this ends my writer review. Thank you all for listening in. If you wish to subscribe to my YouTube channel, please feel free to do so. If you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead. But just remember the 3 simple rules: be kind, be courteous, and please refrain from any rude comments And I will be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Eric Rider saying, keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.